Hello everyone, and welcome to our new episode of the Expat Career and Lifestyle podcast. This is Dominika, your host, and today I am coming to you with a special guest, Paula Echeverri. She was born in Colombia, but spent her half-life in the Silicon Valley in California. Paula is a serial entrepreneur, but she also worked with major companies in the tech industry in Silicon Valley for many years until her life changed when she lost her hearing. She is also an author of the book Emerge, and she's passionate about neuromarketing and neuroscience. And today with Paula, we are going to speak about how you can use neuroscience to overcome challenges in your international and your life based on Paula experience. So welcome Paula. I am really happy to have you here. So could you please tell us more about you and how your international journey started?
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. And I have a very international experience. I was born in Colombia, like you said, but I never felt that I was fitting perfectly down in Colombia, with my work and the ambitions that I have. My goals were a little different, so I decided to move on and try another country, which is the United States, of course. So I moved to the US, and I actually started my family working in the Silicon Valley with companies. The Silicon Valley is all about tech. So I started working with tech companies as an event planner, which was, what I was doing in Colombia in the beginning. And then I moved on. I had my own company for a couple of years. I worked with major companies, HP in the Silicon Valley, and managing all their events, all of that. And then I decided to just, do my own thing, start my own business. And I did for a little bit. I had a business, a physical store in California. And then it was great until the market hit us really hard, 20 years ago. And that was a really hard time for us. We had to move on the store. And then I started figuring out, what should I do now? I started working with a tech company in the US. It was startup in that moment. And it was all about, I took all the customer service because that's what I did. I started advertising as a major, a degree. And I know a lot about, customer service. And I always love customer, behavior. And I think excelling customer service, is actually the way to, create sales, in a company. So I took over the marketing and the customer service. I worked there for so many years. I had a lot of experience, with them, and that was an international company. So I still do work with them, consulting them many times. I still do that because I love it. I love that part of my job. But I always been an entrepreneur, like I said, since I was a little girl. I always to do my own projects, having my own ideas. So I try, after closing the store that I told you I had, I started another company that it was an app, an application online. So everything was great. I started to raise money for this app because, it's very costly to have an app in the tech valley, so I started raising money. And when I was at the peak of my journey with my app and all these things going on in my life, I started noticing that I was losing my hearing. I hear everyone perfectly when they were talking to me. And my husband also told me that at the time, said, I think you're losing, you're hearing a little bit. So that's how my life changed a little bit. And because I started gradually losing my hearing little by little, until I couldn't hear anything. And I didn't have any answer from doctors. They couldn't find out what was going on. They gave me some things, options that they thought, what I had. I personally didn't just, in this moment, I'm not trying to find out what happened. I moved on because that's my, that's the way that I do things in life. I grew up in a very strong family with my mom, who's a very good role model, and she's a very strong person. So I was used to seeing that, you know, moving on from things. I didn't want to stay in that phase. I lost my hearing and crying every day, and make people
Yeah.
feel sorry for me, because that's not what I am. So I decided to move on. So that's how my journey started, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, how did you? Because now you are living in Spain, in Barcelona. So you moved again from US to Spain. But yeah, how did you overcome this challenge of losing hearing and like starting basically starting your life once again in a different country? So how did you do that? Yeah. What is the secret?
Yes. The secret to move on, like I said, I've been always a person that I like to move on easily from challenges. So when you move on to a new country, of course, it's a change. But I always find the positive in the middle of the storm. I am that kind of person. So when you move to a new country, you have friends, family, everyone. So it's hard. You feel lonely. You feel, that you're in a new space. But I try to absorb everything, every experience that I get from the new culture, and that really feeds, my curiosity, and I get filled by those things, a lot. So when you move to a new country, you really have to start, interacting with the culture, finding new things to do, and try to fit that to your new lifestyle. And when, I always love art. So I moved to Barcelona, and for some reason, when I moved here, I just felt that I have to do some art somehow. I started going to art classes, and I started feeling more artistic, because everything in Spain here, when you look around Barcelona, are very artistic looking. All the buildings have all these beautiful, arches and corners and doors and things. So I started interacting more with the culture, and that actually filled me up a lot. I started feeling better about myself, about moving to a new country, and my kids were feeling better, because we moved in the middle of the pandemic here to Spain. We decided, because in California, we had a lot of different experiences with the kids that we didn't think it was good for them. So we decided to move to a different culture that's more accommodating, more family oriented. And we found that in Spain. So that was the answer that we're looking for. The kids, and because my husband and I were very worried about, how the COVID will affect them. But we found out that kids are super resilient. So kids actually are the least affected by this. Actually, I think adults are more affected by the COVID than kids, because kids move on easily. It's in their nature, they just move on. They accept just easily, and they move on. So that's what I found out that it was interesting about my family when I moved here. So my kids were fine. They're like, oh, we love it here. They didn't want to go back to California. They're fine, So I was very surprised to find that. And, that's how I move on, from moving to a new place. And, the culture, is very important. So you need to do your own research about, what things accommodate to your lifestyle, like I did. I always love art, and that's the way I connected to this new culture here in Spain. And I started finding new friends and new people that they fit my lifestyle now. And I love that. So I have these new things, new plasticity in your brain actually is working on new things every day. So art actually allows me to do that. And that's how I do, work on my new brain connections every day.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's speak like more about brain and about the connection and about neuroscience. So how we can use our mind to overcome the challenges that we have in life, like also like based on your own experience. how neuroscience like helped you to overcome your challenge of losing losing hearing.
Yes, when I lost my hearing, of course, we take everything for granted, our senses, right? So
Yeah.
we have our sight, we have our hearing, we have everything, you know, touch. It's a sensory experience, you know, that we're living every day based on our perception of things and ideas that we have since we're kids. You know, so from 0 to 7 years old, you start building all those, you know, like a software in your brain that, you know, starts telling you what's good, what's bad, your values, all these things that you have ingrained in your brain, in your subconscious mind that they call it. So I grew up actually to be, like I said, a very strong person with very strong values when I was little. So I developed a lot of resilience. And you know, that also being an entrepreneur helped me to do that, because when you're an entrepreneur, you have to move on just to challenges and do new things, try new things, you know, when you're an entrepreneur. So all those things helped me to build this toolkit and the, you know, that of things that I had in my brain to move on faster. But neuroscience is, you know, neuroscience is a science that studies the brains and emotions and how they interact in the body. Our emotions affect our body. And I was really blown up when I lost my hearing. I started seeing subtle changes in my brain, in the way it's perceiving reality. So when I saw my brain started to accommodate for the things that I was losing in the speech. For example, you talk to me, I'll understand 80% of the message, and the 20% that I did not get, my brain will start trying to send messages to me about filling the blank spaces that I miss. And sometimes that's good and it's bad.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the message is good or not very accurate. So I started seeing that and I was like, wow, I feel these changes, you know, in my brain. These people, you know, they told me they were trying to tell me this and it was this. So is my brain trying to accommodate messages in my mind? So I started seeing that and I said, wow, the brain is really complex. You know, I want to work more on finding out how my brain and my emotions are working now, because I had a really dark time, of course, the first 6 months that I faced the challenge. Of course, everyone is thinking, is it always, when you have a challenge like this, you always think, why? And you start trying to find out, why is this happening to me? So I have went through a lot of dark times, lots of dark thoughts, lots of the limiting beliefs that my brain was telling me, now that you lost your hearing, you're not worthy, you're not good person. People are not going to take you seriously. People are not going to want to work with you because you're like this. You know, all the limiting beliefs in my brain started to pop up. So that's actually because there's a reaction in your body when you're stressed about a challenge that is called there's a primal emotion in your body that makes you survive. So you get stressed and you start feeling all these things in your body and your mind. And that's when those bad thoughts and feelings start to come up. And many people live like that every day. So I was feeling like I was living like that for a few months until I hit rock bottom and I had a full-blown panic attack where I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, I couldn't do anything much. I had to go to emergency room. My husband took me because I could barely drive. I was like, I couldn't do anything pretty much. So after that moment, I saw, my brain was giving up. I was giving up. My body was affected by all these changes in my body and my brain and these thoughts and these dark clouds, like I call them, that they came to my mind all the time. So I decided to move on. From that moment, that was a breakthrough where I said, what am I doing? My brain is affecting when all these thoughts are affecting my body right now. So besides losing my hearing, I am now suffering all these, problems like panic attacks and all these things because of all the thoughts that I had in my brain. So that was a breakthrough moment where I said, I need to move on. you need to have, the power to say, I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
to move on. That comes from resilience, like you said. Sometimes you need to find out inside, there's a lot of self-reflection and say, I'm done with this. I need to move on. And many people don't find the motivation or the, resilience side of them because they don't have a lot of them. So you have to build that every day in your brain. Resilience for some people is something that is not built into them because actually from neuroscience, there's a study actually that shows that many people, when they were abused in their childhood, their
Mm-hmm.
resilience actually is very poor when they grew up. So it really affects, the way that you grew up. All your emotions and feelings and traumas, they affect that part of your, your
Mm-hmm.
personality. So I decided that, I from my childhood, I have a very strong mom and all of that. I decided I had to move on. I didn't want, everyone to think, poor Paula, little thing, she's going through all of this. I wanted people to say, oh, she moved on. She's doing great now. She's doing her life the way she's supposed to be, even when she had this challenge. And that's what I did. That was my motivation. And my kids, of course, were huge motivation for me to move on because I don't want them to see me, just sitting in the couch all day crying for that. I want them to see, I want my kids to see that I'm a strong person and that I can, I can move on from these challenges. And that's what I find out. So there's a lot of self-reflection involved. And
Mm-hmm.
you need to peel those layers and take those feelings and bad thoughts. I started doing a lot of gratitude, which I found that's actually very beneficial for the brain because it creates all these good feelings in your body, chemicals, that they go in your brain and they make you feel happy. So I was blown away when I was having these difficult thoughts. I would start thinking about something that I was grateful for in my life. And those feelings just move, they'll evaporate, they'll go away. And that was amazing, to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Attitude is huge, and nobody knows that. And it's hard to do that when you're going through a challenge to see,
Yeah.
the things that you're grateful for.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And there's so many things that you can be grateful every day for. You have food on the table. You have, a nice bed to sleep in, whatever little things that you can be grateful for. You have kids, and my kids were big supporters of my problem. They were always supporting me. They were learning sign language to help me out. They were doing all these things with me, So I was really, I had the support from my family, and that was huge. Of course, having a good, having a good tribe, like I call
Mm-hmm.
it, people that will support you. So that's the way I had to, I did start rewiring my thoughts, changing the narrative of my problem, that was not a problem anymore, that I actually benefit from this challenge. That was a blessing in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
And I move on and I decided, I changed my life completely. I started creating a new person that I wanted always, to be, and I did it. And it's a challenge, of course, every day. Every day you have to do new things to be in that state. So
Yeah.
we do every day.
Yeah. So you are a great example how to turn a problem into something positive and start something new. So you are a great example of that. And you also wrote a book called Emerge. So what prompted you to write the book?
The book was written because it was a funny story, because I always like to do little classes online about woman empowerment and things like that. And I have lots of journals. Journaling was one of the things that helped me a lot, when I was through a process. So I keep all these cool journals that I have in my house, and sometimes I go and read them and see what I was thinking that moment, a few years ago. So last year I started writing the book because I was going through one of those journals, and there was a question in one of the classes that I was taking a long time ago. How would you see yourself in a few years? And I saw that I was answering that question in that journal. And I saw myself, I drew a picture of myself holding a book with my kids. I don't know why I did that, but it was something I just did, you know, it's just in my brain, you know, it just came up and I just did it. I drew a picture of me holding a book, my own book. And I was like, wow, I saw the journal and then I felt something inside of me that said, this is the moment now that you should write the book. You can actually, I go to many groups and many women groups online and here in Barcelona, and I see that a lot of women, they're going through a lot of challenges, need a lot of help trying to move on. So when I saw this, I said, you know, I went through a lot. Maybe I should share my experience in a book and also use, you know, the tools, tell people the tools that I use that they help me to move. So I did that, and I actually had 9 women who contributed to the book that they wrote an interview, each one of them, about their profession. Some of them are psychologists, this coach that is all about mindfulness and meditation. There's another word. There are 9 women who contributed from their own point of view about, you know, how you can move on each chapter is a step of the process. So that shows you how to move on from a challenge and the things that you can do to do it. So that's what I decided to write this book. That's my purpose right now, is to help all these women who went through all these challenges like I did, and they need that push, that support to move on.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So thank you very much for sharing that and for sharing your experience with us today. So how, tell us what are your projects? So helping women to overcome challenges, but any other projects that you have, and if people they want to connect with you, where they can find you.
Right now, my projects are keep going with this research that I've been doing about neuroscience. Actually, one of my quests, it was about the problem that I said about my hearing. That was one of the things that I want to start looking for, you know, to help more people who have those hearing issues and they face those challenges that I did. So I want to raise a lot of awareness about hearing loss, because when I did that, when I lost my hearing, I saw people with hearing loss, they're not being acknowledged so much right now. There's a little change, you know, somehow in, you know, YouTube, where Zoom, all these people putting captions everywhere, and that's going to help us a little bit, because years ago when I lost my hearing, there's so many classes that I just want to join and I couldn't, because they told me there's no captions. And I'm like, oh my God, I really want to do that, you know. It was, we're being somehow people with hearing loss are not being acknowledged enough. So I really want to fight for that, because now I think, you know, because of my issue, I know, you know, I am in their shoes. I know what is being, you know, what is being to be like in that process. And I want to do a lot like that. And in the neuroscience part also, I have a website where I have post all these interviews that contribute to that, to learning about the brain, the mind and the body connection. And I actually sold my book online. I am also doing meetings with people where they want to know about brain health and what they're doing to, you know, control how they can contribute to brain health in the long term and change their lives. So I want to do that also with people, because I think it's important to have a personal, you know, a mentor or somebody who can help you through those processes. So I wish I can help a lot of people like that, because, you know, I went through that. So maybe some more books.
Yeah.
That'll be another thing more about neuroscience and, you know, mind and body connection. I also am very intrigued about how you can heal your own body on your own without, any drugs, doctors, whatever it is. I saw that your brain actually can heal, yourself without any, drugs or anything like that, because your brain is so powerful that you can, just with your thoughts, you can control your emotions and you can heal your body too. With that. So that's another thing that I'm researching a lot, that I want to do a lot more interviews with other experts and write more about that. So yeah.
Great. So yeah, there is a lot to do. So I will put the link to your website so people they can go and check it and connect with you. Any last piece of advice, wisdom to women or men who are thinking about moving abroad, starting a business, or overcoming any challenges? Last piece of advice.
I think personally, it all comes down to, to finding a purpose in life. When you think about the future and you say, I want to do this, I want to be this person in the future, and start doing little changes every day to become that person. Even if you move or you have a challenge or things like that happen in life every day, when you have that clear in your mind and you keep working towards that goal, it keeps you motivated and it keeps you happy. I think that's very important. If you have a goal and you visualize that goal, even if you're going through challenges, don't look at the challenge, because like I said, some challenges are a blessing in disguise. Just keep working on your goals and getting towards that goal, and do little things every day that help that, every day. Challenges are gonna come every day, from everywhere, because it's life. We're living, life. But I think that's the most important, to find a purpose. If you find a purpose, you will overcome anything, because you're always focused on that, and you don't see all these things that are coming to you like little challenges in life, and you move on towards that. So I think that would be my advice.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Paula. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you very much to our listeners, or to people who are watching the video. So please tell us, what are your learning points from this interview? What actions are you going to take to work on your mindset? Or maybe you have overcome a challenge. So tell us, what did you do to overcome it? Share in the comments, and I will be back with another episode. Thank you very much, and speak to you soon. Thank you, Paula.
And thank you.